welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, ET Now's flagship series dedicated to the micro, small and medium enterprise sector of India. As India's entrepreneurship ecosystem sits at the cusp of rapid economic growth, it also holds the potential of impacting millions of lives in a positive way. So tonight on MSME Dialogues, we are talking about building a successful social enterprise, an enterprise that is scalable and profitable while also creating a positive social or environmental impact. To throw more light on this, I'm joined by an eminent panel of experts. Sumit Dagar, founder and director at Kriyate, Vishal Mehta, co-founder of Lok Capital, and Amit Bhatia, CEO at Impact Investors Council. And joining us from Bengaluru, Surbhi Rajgopal, Principal Analyst at Selco Foundation. Welcome Surbhi and welcome gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on Leaders of Tomorrow today. Amit, perhaps I'd like to open the discussion with your thoughts on how big is the market opportunity in India for anyone who wants to establish a social enterprise, given the fact that, we are a laboratory of sorts when it comes to social problems.
India's ground zero for social entrepreneurship. We are blessed with a large nation, but we also have a problem of 300 million poor, and almost any social sector on the planet exists very much right here in India. Therefore we have a lot of young social leaders trying to figure out how they can lead meaningful lives and address some of these problems through business means, through markets.
Right.
And as a consequence, our social impact sector, the for-profit sector, has grown to about $2.5 billion. There are several thousands of social enterprises across 9 sectors, whether it's water, sanitation, financial inclusion, education, healthcare, clean energy, livelihoods.
Right.
And over 350 of these social enterprises have been funded by social impact venture capitalists like the ones represented by Vishal right here.
Yes. Vishal, in context of Indian MSMEs particularly, what are the areas that need impact investing?
I think the financing part is very critical, and that is also something that has been addressed very rapidly now. In some ways, when we talk about financial inclusion as one part of the overall impact investing business, in that within financial inclusion, MSME financing is getting a lot of attention, rightly so, because that's where you start impacting thousands and thousands of jobs, right? And job creation and unemployment being one of the critical factors in the social issues that we talked about.
Right. And Sumit, you're someone who's built a platform, you are building a technology-based platform for the visually impaired. How challenging has it been to see revenues? And would you say that focusing on an unserved or an underserved market is really the only sure-shot way of building a successful social enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, revenue obviously is one of the primary motivations at some point of time, but especially for a social enterprise, it doesn't come so early in the stage. The idea is to create impact. The idea is to create social value out of the work that you are doing.
Right.
And that is followed by revenue at some point of time. So it becomes more challenging at the early stage because social impact is something that you calculate over time, not over a moment, as compared to money. So it becomes a bit more challenging to show your value of your work in a certain amount of time.
Okay. Surbhi, pulling you in at this point in time, Selco has been at the forefront of improving energy access for a number of people in the rural areas. Today, of course, you also have a not-for-profit foundation that's running quite successfully. But tell us about, on the for-profit side, how does one really go about building a business model that is scalable and that can be monetized and driven away from the grants and donations side of things?
It has taken us 20 years to get to where we are, and there are still 240 million people without electricity access. And looking across sectors, you'd find that there is a need for a lot more social enterprises to exist. And I think one of the things that we think about is how can you help existing social enterprises become for-profit ventures that can be invested in, but with investments that are realistic and in line with ground realities. I think the fear is often that investors come in with expectations of very high returns or very low exit periods. And that's one thing that we've managed at Selco to keep away from. We've had a set of very patient capital investors who have given us the time to grow, who have given us the time to build the ecosystem as well. And we hope that through our incubation center, we're able to identify entrepreneurs in other regions and help them replicate the Selco model, as opposed to simply trying to scale up this model. Because it is very often driven by what is relevant in the local context, and you really have to build your social business around what that needs.
Okay, so Amit, I'd like your perspective on that. Investors who come into social enterprises, are they expecting the same kind of returns that they are expecting out of any other businesses?
There are different kind of funds, and every fund sets up its own philosophy before they start investing. In India, the track record is that there are about 50 social impact funds. Almost all of them say okay, financial return and social returns got to go hand in hand.
Right.
In terms of social outcomes, they are going well beyond households touch or lives touch. They are looking at, okay, are schoolgirls still spending 2 hours a day fetching water, or is there a tap access right next door? Are these toilets getting built in rural, or are they actually getting used? So in terms of social outcome, there are very strict metrics. But in terms of financial returns, I think the track record is that since 2007, in about 55 partial and full exits,
Right.
the industry has earned about 13% return. So that does make this sector happy. The fact that the sector is growing at 24% compounded annual growth rate means that return is good enough at this point to
Right.
keep attracting more capital.
And do you see that increasing anytime soon?
Well, I think it's hard to say whether the returns will increase. I think the fact that these returns are dollar adjusted show they are healthy returns. I think it depends clearly on the kind of social entrepreneurs coming and the kind of problems they are addressing. Financial inclusion has, I think, led almost 2/3 of this sector. And even as we talk, Equitas is listing.
Yes.
You know, last quarter, Narayan Health listed. So for the first time, we are seeing that whether it's financial inclusion, healthcare, social enterprises are able to grow large, list, and give healthy returns. So I think whether the 13% is the right number or not, the market will determine. And like Adam Smith's invisible hand works in business, it works in social sector as well.
So, but the signs are good.
The signs are
all
good.
All right. So, Vishal, India is a huge bottom of the pyramid market. And what is the sort of frugal innovation that is required to really create an impactful and a successful business model?
You name a sector where, and there is innovation that is very much required there. The way the impact investing has gone in saying that what are some of the basic services that the low income and the masses in India require,
Right.
As Amit said, financial inclusion did turn out to be one of the pioneer sectors because of just the amount of innovation that took place in that sector for decades.
Right.
When people look at microfinance, they think this is a sector that started in 2000 and rapidly scaled up. They're forgetting 3 decades till the time the 2000 scale up happened. There were a lot of innovations that happened in the SHG bank linkage model, in the non-profit microcredit model, etc., which led to the rapid scale up. But beyond that, healthcare, we're seeing some very wonderful innovation. Education, I think there's much more scope, and I guess we'll get to talk about it because regulatory is one very important part of this ecosystem. In education, we've seen that the scope to get more regulatory support is very high. As we have seen in financial inclusion, if you get the regulatory support, like the small finance bank licenses, payment bank licenses, it can really scale up the businesses.
Okay. And from an entrepreneur's perspective, Sumit, what was your biggest challenge when you were looking at frugal innovation, in the sense doing more good by using less? From an entrepreneur's perspective, what's the biggest challenge for anyone who's out there who has an idea, who has a thought that he or she wants to develop a product or a service that really leaves a positive impact? What are the real on-ground challenges that one will really be faced with?
As a social entrepreneur, I feel the differentiator is to measure impact. As Amit was saying, it's relatively easier to measure impact in the fields like financial inclusion, which are more mature.
Yeah.
But if you come to other fields which are still early stage, which haven't passed through that time period of say 3 decades or lower, it's not easy to measure impact at early stage. So you know you're doing something good, which will be impactful at some point of stage. But how do you get numbers into it to convince investors that this is going to be something high in returns as well?
So we are going to come to that in a short while. Let me bring in Surbhi at this point. I have one question for you before we head into a quick break. Low-income consumers are not really interested in very high technology products, right? They're interested in affordable and practical solutions. So what sort of grassroots level alliances and partnerships does one have to build to really be able to build a successful social enterprise?
I think with reference to cost of technology or affordability, we need to make sure that we're making the distinction, because when you talk about affordability, you're also referring to whether they are able to pay, and as long as you're not taking out from their disposable income, it should actually be fine to create a product that is of good quality and make sure. So what Selco has done is over time worked a lot with the regional rural banks on the ground to make sure that while the quality of our product is good, consumers are provided with affordable financing. So having interest rates, bank level interest rates, and being able to lend to consumers on the ground has been one of the biggest benefits for us as a model, because without that consumer financing at an affordable rate, it would not be possible for a lot of our end users to afford our systems at a one-time basis. I think the other partnership that was very critical for us are ground-based community mobilization organizations that play a very critical role in ensuring an awareness amongst communities, a buy-in from households for the new kinds of technologies and solutions that are being provided today.
We are going to talk a little more about the ecosystem on the other side of the break. We'll take a short break right here. On the other side, we'll ask our investors how they evaluate the potential of aspiring social entrepreneurs and also find out what it takes to build the right team for a social enterprise. Stay with us on Leaders of Tomorrow, MSME Dialogues, only on ET Now. Welcome back to Leaders of Tomorrow, MSME Dialogues. Tonight, we're talking about building a successful social enterprise. Amit, before the break, Sumit was really talking about how it is challenging for an entrepreneur to really quantify the impact that he or she is expecting to create. As an investor, how do you evaluate proposals of social enterprises?
Look, so there are a few generic things about venture capital in general, which does not change in the social sector other than asking specific questions about social outcomes, the beneficiary you're trying to address. So to the part one, which is around the fact that you're taking risk on somebody's business, you would ask the standard questions. And I think the three top questions always are, is the market big enough? And in India, the question usually, the answer is yes. Is your product or service that you're going to offer really bring some discontinuity and really impact? And I think that product innovation is a critical part. And third is the management team bit. Can you truly execute? But I think on the second part is where, we have to be even clearer as a social entrepreneur that do you know who's the beneficiary you are targeting? And do you truly understand their purse? Because they cannot afford, services and products the way city people do. And have you really innovated enough? To your earlier innovation question, for example, a LED light, solar light, which costs 3,000 rupees, enterprise have figured out how they can lease it on a daily rate over a year at 10 rupees. Now that's an innovation which makes us as investors go, aha, this guy understands how the poor's daily, how the purchasing pattern will respond to their daily earnings and how they're going to take 10 rupee out. So I think we are looking for on the social side, has the entrepreneur really figured out the lifestyle and the patterns of the poor to be able to genuinely address that need?
Right. Vishal, would you like to add on to that? And especially while evaluating the team, the people, what are you really looking for?
I think that is actually the key part here. The fact of the matter is social will always be subjective. The fact of the matter also is what is social in India in healthcare today could be very different from what is impactful in Brazil, in healthcare at the different time and all. So it's a very contextual thing. It's a very subjective thing. So therefore, it largely comes to the motivation of people who are doing this. What is the intent, right? A very practical way to assess this is, are we sitting with people who are doing something on similar reasons and motivations that we are doing loc, right? And if we are able to find some degree of, not some degree, a high degree of alignment there, then it gives us a very good comfort. But these are largely gut calls that one has to make. But you get better at doing this over and over again.
All right. So Sumit, your company is funded by Echoing Green. That does not really fund too many organizations in the world. What did it take for you to win the investors over?
In one word, I think empathy. I think those guys have been doing it for such a long time that they understand that what value it will create in future at some point of time. So that empathy brings in easy communication and easy conviction. So I think that was something that it took. Otherwise, everything entrepreneur as such, like passion and team and commitment and understanding of the field.
Right. But apart from everything that a startup really requires, what is that one top quality that an entrepreneur in the social enterprise space must definitely possess?
I think vision. It has to be clarity of vision, that what work you are doing, whether it's a product or a process innovation, what change it will bring in and how you can build up on that change in future.
Okay. So Surbhi, Selco had some of that vision, and you helped develop financial solutions also for people who could not possibly afford your solutions before you, worked with commercial banks and really got them to push your products. What sort of, how challenging was it to convince commercial banks of Selco's offerings and really get them on board?
Yeah, so I think for the founders in the organization, it took at least 4 to 5 years to just get the first set of bankers interested. Remember, these are regional rural bankers working on the ground, and they understand the customer well, but at that point in time, they were also very skeptical about solar technology. And so having to work with them there were banker training workshops that would be undertaken every week across the state of Karnataka, which is where we started off in, to try and get these bankers to understand what the technology is, to address their questions around risks, to address their questions around what is the financial viability for a customer, and make sure we're giving them the confidence that these are not going to turn into non-performing assets, which is the biggest fear for a lot of bankers. And I think over time, we have tried to replicate this in different states, because even if you do it in one state, you constantly need to follow up with a new set of bankers to be able to have this larger impact.
So today, the startup ecosystem is really getting built at a rapid pace. There's a lot of collaboration happening between startups. There's a lot of sharing and helping each other out. Is there a similar ecosystem being built for social enterprises in particular, Amit?
No, absolutely. I think, in fact, as in business entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship is very much starting on college premises. So it is not uncommon to see an IIM Ahmedabad or IIM Calcutta and other business institutes encouraging young people. And as professionals are moving into it, they are finding ecosystems. Several of our funds run such, incubators, and accelerators, which allow social entrepreneurs to be able to come and be able to nurture their ventures. So there is a very large ecosystem beyond the investors, whether they are legal advisors or investment banks or headhunters focused on this. So there is a full social sector which is evolving just as the business sector is evolving. I think people know less about this than they know about the business sector, and therefore people often struggle to say, okay, where do I go? And I think Impact Investors Council is a very nice place to start their search, to just come and say, okay, what do I do next? I have a great idea. I don't just want to make money in my life. I want to make money more conscientiously. I want my life to be meaningful. And IIC is taking on itself to build this larger ecosystem in the country. And to
there is a lot of mentorship happening.
Absolutely. So we are running multiple programs. At this point in time, we are supporting a program at IIM Ahmedabad where we are providing mentors, and we are going to be working with several other agencies, including on a program with TAI, where a lot of our fund managers become mentors to young entrepreneurs, and we are able to nurture them to be able to build successful social enterprises.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear. And making money while doing good is surely not an easy task. So for all those people out there who really want to do that and establish a social enterprise, as we close the discussion, I'm going to ask each one of you for that one success mantra for someone who's looking to take on that journey. Sumit?
Passion. It has to be. You have to be passionate about what you are doing, what you want to achieve with this. It obviously brings in fulfillment as you start to see impact, but it has to be passion, and it's not a momentary word. It keeps evolving in terms of definition as you go along your journey.
All right. Vishal?
I would say, I mean, you need, because it's a balance, right, between the social and the impact side. There's a lot of discipline that is required in each, right? As I think Subri was saying, in terms of even expansion, even if you're successful in one state, how do you go to the other state? Do you have the discipline to pilot it correctly in one place before you replicate it? And on impact side also, right? The fact of the matter is you can have the most impactful product, but you can sell it and service it completely irresponsibly and actually have a negative impact. And we saw some bit of that in microfinance in Andhra. So the product there was nothing wrong, but how you deliver the product. So I think it requires a lot of discipline, both on the impact side as well as on the business and the financial side.
Okay. Your tips for aspiring social entrepreneurs, Amit?
I'd say perseverance. I think when I think of the biggest role models in social entrepreneurship, I think of Dr. V and Arvind Eye Care. I think of Verghese Kurian and Amul. I think of John Bissell and Fab India, whose product I'm wearing. Or I think of Ela Bhatt and Seva. They spent several decades building those organizations. It was not even 1 or 2 decades. It was 3 to 4 decades of lifetime. Now, to have that vision and with tenacity hang in there requires perseverance and huge commitment. And I think as people jump to be social entrepreneurs, it should always be they want to be real leaders of tomorrow, be in true service of mankind, and have the perseverance to stay the course.
Yes, because a lot of people who are entering businesses today, in any sector, startups for that matter, already have the exit plan in mind.
Yeah, and I think that's a sure shot way of not having that exit ever. I think, you got to make sure that your eyes are kept on the vision that we are going to serve and create impact. And if you're creating impact, the whole universe will conspire to make sure those exits happen and you appear on Economic Times or Wall Street Journal front page. But if that's the vision you start with, how do I make the front page? It ain't happening.
All right. Surbhi, your tips for aspiring social entrepreneurs?
I think passion definitely, but in addition to that, a commitment to work with a ground team. I think, Selco has gotten to 450 people and all of its impact only because the team on the ground has been strong. So making sure you have a strong team of committed people who know the local context. I think that's a big part of it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Surbhi. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to have you on board with us. And with that, it's a wrap on Leaders of Tomorrow MSME Dialogues. Hope you enjoyed those insights on social entrepreneurship. Do write into us. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us through our email ID, leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com, or reach out to us using social media by just putting in the hashtag LOT, or just call us on the number flashing on your screen. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye and good night.